Good evening, good evening, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. I wanted to hop on here, one, because I'm trying to be consistent and I have not been consistent. I have let life just do its thing, take over my life as a homeschool mom, a wife. Life has been lifing, as the kids like to say. Life's been lifing. Um, but I wanted to hop on here so I can be consistent and just give honor to the Lord because He is worthy to be praised. That's number one. He's always worthy to be praised. But as I was driving home today, I was like, Lord, what should I share with the people? What should I share with people? Because I want to practice asking God what He wants me to share, what He wants me to speak on, and not just on that, but just on all the areas of my life that I'm on a personal journey to just be aligned with the will of God. And um, yeah, so I want to ask more like, what should I do day to day? What choices should I make so that one, I just feel like I'm always tuned in to His voice, but also as a way of I don't know, I don't know, just being ready to serve, because I don't know, I don't really follow the weather too much. Although last night I did see something about tropical storms in the Atlantic and um, a couple of storms happening. But weather is something that constantly comes up. As someone who originally is from California. So Southern California is primarily sunny. Only weather events we kind of get is that hot wind, or you get um, fire season where you have fires off and on. But everyone else in the country, or even in the mountains of California, you are getting snow, rain. You experience all the seasons. And now that I live here in Texas, it's just a different experience as far as the weather goes. And so, long story short, I was driving home this afternoon and I was like, Lord, I need to, one, practice going live, practice using this system, practice just putting myself out there and becoming a better spokesman for the word and for His truth. And so here I am, and I appreciate anyone who's listening to this, whether it's now, 5 years from now, tomorrow, the next hour. May it touch those who is meant to touch. So, Father, we just ask that your anointing and blessing be on this live stream, and that any ears that this comes and eye gates that comes through, may it touch them in a way that they know that it is from you, Lord. And may every word from my mouth honor you and be from you, God. Let me not be of anything that misguides people or turns them away from you, but use me as your vessel, Father. And so, God controls the weather, part one. Okay. So we're going to talk about Job. And I know if you are a believer, you probably have heard the story of the prophet Job. So Job was a very well off man. He was very wealthy and he had many children. And, in those days, children and livestock and was a sign of your wealth and your power, right? And so he was respected as someone who was in aligned with righteousness, and he strived to be a very righteous man. And he would pray for his children, and he would make sacrifices for his children. And I think that's something that really touches my own heart, is that we have to be praying parents for our children. But again, this is about the weather, not necessarily about the children. So Job is a wealthy man, and he has his life is good overall. He has 10 kids, 7 boys, three girls. He's married. He has lots of livestock. He has people that work for him, servants. He is well off, and so he prays morning and evening. He's always living in respect of the Lord. And this is the impression that I get when I read the story, that he's always living in reverence of the Lord, honoring him in the things that he does. And so Satan goes and he asks God, um, he says, um, of course, Job is serving you. You've put a hedge of protection around him. Uh, his life is good. His life is, like they say, set up. He's set up he's prosperous. He's flourishing in righteousness. And of course, he's going to serve you. But if you take those things away, then he's going to curse you, right? And so God, more to give us a story, I feel, and this is my personal opinion, that God gives us a story to look upon, but also, or a standard to be like, but to also know that everything in this life is fleeting and it is a gift from him, and in his greatness and in his mercy and his love, that he can take those things away in order to give a greater lesson, uh, and immortalize you, I guess, in some way. So nonetheless, God tells Satan he can take everything from Job, but not to touch Job. He can't kill him, and he not to kill him. So Job loses everything, loses all his livestock. He loses his children. They ate together often, it seems, and they were at the oldest son's house having a feast, partying it up. I imagine them, having lots of wine, eating well, because their dad is, wealthy, and they have lots of things that are available to them. So they're enjoying their time, and the wind comes and knocks the house down and kills all the kids. And um, we just see how God uses the weather and gives permission for the weather to be used as a way of showing his grace, his majesty, his power, but also his judgment. Weather can also be a judgment. We can look at Jonah, and we will visit Jonah in part 2. But let's look at Job chapter 1. All right. So Job chapter 1, and this is verses, let's look at verses 16 through, because we're going to focus just on the weather pieces. So this is when Satan gives permission to destroy basically Job's life in the beginning. So it's in verse 16, Job chapter 1 says, while he was speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. So he had just received some bad news, and then another one comes, but he says the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep. And I believe in another translation, it is like the striking of God, which I imagine more like getting struck by lightning, when people get struck by lightning, because God orders where each strike, and he knows he is in control 100% of the weather, and we'll get to that. So 17, while he was speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I'm the only one who has escaped to you. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came. So this is messenger number 3. Came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. So, of course, Job is distressed, as you can see. If you read on, he tears his robe and he shaves his head, which is a sign of mourning in the times. And to point out, because we are focused on weather, and God tells me to focus on weather, in verse 16, it was fire from the heavens. Fire from the heaven, that can be in lightning, that can be literal fireballs, that could have been, we hear in the Bible a lot, whirlwinds to describe a lot of things. And have you guys seen the fire tornadoes, which have happened in California? I know with the dryness and the fire is just spinning up in that way. But then the four winds, let's see, in verse, the mighty wind, so in verse 19, when suddenly the mighty wind came and swept from the desert, and you'll see that also throughout the Bible, is that the east winds are the hot winds from the desert, and the south winds tend to be the cold winds as they're described. At least this is from what I've seen so far. So Job loses his kids. He loses his livestock. He still has his wife, but he doesn't curse the Lord. Even though like all your kids die in one sweep, he does not curse the Lord. He sins not against the Lord. He stays fast and true to the Lord, despite losing all his livestock, despite losing all of his kids all at once. So, of course, Satan goes back and petitions the Lord and asks to afflict Job himself. Like Job still has his health, he still can be thankful and giving because he has his health. And the Lord allows Satan to strike Job with physical affliction, but he cannot kill him. He's not allowed to death. So Job gets these boils on his body, and I can only imagine he's a sight to see because he's scraping his skin, sitting there, and he's lost everything. And even his followers and the people who respected him and saw him on the highly place were just sad and sat with him. And his wife comes to a point where she's like, why don't you just curse God and die already? Like, just, what good is your God? Imagine like you have your spouse, the person who you're supposed to be unified before the Lord, telling you to curse God and die. It's just, Job is, all the stories of the Bible are great, but Job has that special place in my heart along with Joseph. But the more I read, it's just every story comes to life in different ways for different times in your life. But focusing on the weather, God used the wind, and He uses all types. So when God told me to talk about Job and the weather, I didn't know in this book it actually says God controls the weather. So of course, when I'm like, oh Lord, like you're listening to you and your awesomeness just makes life so much more rich, so much more enjoyable. And we just see like why the angels continue to say holy, 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 because they're just constantly being revealed God's greatness. Can you just imagine that? Like God's greatness just constantly being revealed, and you just have that reverence and that awe of his greatness and his power. And that can be used for judgment. It can be used for correction. God uses his ways. It can just use to show his majesty and his beauty, and as a service, it can rain, it can drought. God is in control of all that. So let's look at let's see where we're at. All right, let's go to 36. We're going to read 36 and 37 of Job. And this is, Job is afflicted, and he has this friend, Elihu. I don't know, it's Elihu. Elihu comes, and he's kind of like that voice of reason to Job while he's being afflicted, because clearly his wife was not being the voice of reason. And so let's look at Job 36. So this is Elihu's response to Job. He said, "Be." Elihu responded again and said, "Be patient with me a moment longer, and I'll show you that there's more to say on God's behalf." So he's petitioning for God. "I'll take what I know to its logical conclusion and ascribe righteousness to my creator." Right? So God is showing his righteousness, but I think Elihu in his presence in this story just shows that God will send things to encourage you when you are down. He will send things to remind people to remind you, pictures, memories, Facebook posts, a text message randomly. Somebody posted something they shared with another family member, and that touches you. Like, he will lift you up in those hard times. He will send a message to remind you of who he is. And so Elihu shows up, and he is that person for Job. Um, so, verse 4, because what I have to say isn't deceptive, and the one who has perfect knowledge is with you. Perfect knowledge. So he says, I'm going to ascribe righteousness to my creator. And then he also says, the one who has perfect knowledge. So even though, like, Job doesn't understand his affliction, he actually curses the day that he was born. And God will have his voice and opinion in this story, and we'll get to that. So verse 5, indeed, God is mighty, and he doesn't show disrespect. He is mighty and strong of heart. He doesn't let the wicked live. He grants justice to the afflicted. He won't stop looking at righteous people. He seats them on thrones with kings forever, and they are exalted. So grab onto that promise. That's a promise to grab onto for sure. If they're bound in chains, caught in ropes of affliction, he'll reveal their actions to them when their transgressions have become excessive. So if you're feeling bound in chains and afflicted, cry out to the Lord, and he will show you where he'll give you that corrective course, right? That corrective course. Verse 10, he opens their ears and instructs them, commanding them to repent from evil. If they listen and serve him, they'll finish their lives in prosperity, and their years will be pleasant. So just because you have all the money and you're not serving God doesn't mean your life is pleasant. It might look pleasant on the outside, but to have a real joy and pleasant life and a prosperous life comes with the joy of the Lord. Come with serving the Lord and doing his will. Verse 12. But if they won't listen, they'll perish by the sword and die in their ignorance. So it's a choice. God always gives a choice. We have free will. The godless at heart cherish anger. They won't cry out for help when God afflicts them. They die in their youth. So some people die young. And their life will end among temple prostitutes. He'll deliver the afflicted through their afflictions and open their ears when they are oppressed. Indeed, he drew you away from the brink of distress to a spacious place without constraints, filling your festive table with bountiful food. But now you are occupied with the case of the wicked, but justice and judgment will be served. Because we serve a righteous, just God, and he course corrects us when we're off path. So that no one entices you with riches, don't let a large ransom turn you astray. So that's something right there, is not to be caught up with the riches. So many people fall from the grace of God. I don't know if it's the grace. They fall from the hedge. They open the hedge. They give Satan legal access. Their hedge of protection that comes with serving the Lord in righteousness is broken, and Satan and his minions have access to that. And a lot of times that's because we want to be rich, we want to be well off, we want to um, we want to live in a way that maybe we're not prepared to, because God requires us to press. He presses us to fill our lampshades with that oil. He's pressing us. Um, he's maturing us to take care of the wealth that he wants us to have. Whereas Satan's like, you want this bag of money? You want this bag of money? And then we're like, yes, give it to me. And we get it so fast, but we're not honoring the Lord. And then what? A lot of people end up in sexual immorality, drugs, whatever it is, but not serving God in the way that they should. And so uh, let's go to 22. Indeed, God is exalted in his power, who is like him as a teacher, who ordained his path for him, and who asked him, you are wrong, aren't you? Remember to magnify his awesome activities, about which mortal man has sung. All of mankind sees him. Human beings observe him from afar off. All right. And this is when we get into God controls the weather. And this title was there before I knew it was there. This is in the ISV version of the Bible. So they have it also labeled as God controls the weather. And God wanted me to talk about the weather. So let's hone in on this is chapter 36, verses 26 forward. So it says, God is truly awesome beyond what we know. Amen. Amen. The number of his years is unknowable. He draws up drops of water, distilling it to rain and mist. So God is in control of drawing up the water into the clouds, and he decides where it's raining. He decides if you're going to wake up to the fog. He decides if it's going to have mist. He decides if there's going to be dew on the plants, right? 28. When the clouds pour down, they drop their rain on all of humanity. Furthermore, can anyone understand cloud patterns or the thundering in his pavilion? He scatters his lightning above it and covers the bottom of the sea. He uses them to judge some people and give food to many. So we need the rain for food crops and for sustainability. We just need that cycle of life to happen. We need water to live. And so God is saying that he uses the rain in for judgment. Verse 31, he uses them to judge some people and give food to many. Right? His hands are covered with lightning that he commands to strike his designated targets. And it really makes me think of, because I met a man who told me he was struck by lightning twice. And I read this and thinking like, was God getting his attention? And did he heed that warning? Like being struck by lightning twice is very extremely rare. And he's still alive and kicking and all that. So I found that quite interesting, that he was struck twice by lightning, and is here to tell it. All right, verse 33. His thunder declares his presence. So when you hearing that thunder, I was like, declaring the presence of the Lord, and tells the animals what is coming. So the animals understand. If you have animals, I have a dog, I have chickens, but I've been around a lot of animals. Animals, when they hear the thunder and lightning, they're gone, right? They usually take in shelter. But he's saying it tells the animals what's coming. So he's declaring his presence. That's a beautiful thing to think about. Like God is declaring his presence through the thunder. and he decides where the lightning strikes. And I don't know where you live and where you're listening from, but here where I live, the lightning can be all the way across the sky, just beautiful, beautiful. We have thick things of lightning coming down. I love the light shows, or sometimes the lighting is just light shows are all in the clouds. They never come down. I just see them up in the clouds. And I'm no meteorologist or anything like that, so I can't really speak on that. But if you guys want to share more about the different clouds, share about it. Tell me about it in the comments because I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist. All right, let's go to 37. We're going to continue in 37. So let me go ahead and put this here, so make it bigger so you guys can read it. All right, so his friend is still telling him about God controls the weather and everything is by God and it's for his righteousness and what he does. We can't understand. Like he is fine tuning us. And what are we to be so attached to things in this world when we're aiming for the eternal? You know, who are we to be so attached? So 37, let's read. Now I conclude with this. My heart is trembling violently. It feels like it is about to leap from my body. Listen carefully to his thundering voice, to the sound that rumbles from his mouth. He releases his lightning throughout the sky to the ends of the earth. His thunder roars after it. His majestic voice will thunder, and no one can trace them once his voice has been heard. God thunders with his wondrous voice. He does awesome works that we don't comprehend. For he says to the snow, fall to the earth. He tells the rain, pour down. Then it rains profusely. So just thinking about that thunder of God's voice is just in my mind. I have this visual of like now every time I hear the thunder, and even though I've read Job many times, I never stop to really just contemplate on this section about God controlling the weather, but God directed me to look at that today and think about it. So verse 7, he puts a limit to the skill of every person to delineate all people from what they do. Right? So this is actually a call to, I think, appreciate the differences within just on earth, just appreciate our differences. Like God, made someone great at mathematics, someone great at drawing, someone great at, I don't know, engineering, whatever it is. We all have a calling. Someone's great with their words. Someone's great with their hands, whatever your masseuse, whatever your calling is, your calling, your job that you're doing right now, and I just feel led to say this, could actually be your ministry. If you're doing a job and a job well done, that is a form of ministry. Ministry is not always just talking. Ministry is showing up and doing and serving your community is a ministry. All right. So 8, then a beast enters its lair and remains in its den. From the south, a whirlwind proceeds out of the icy north winds. From the breath of God, ice is produced. Wow. And a wide body of water is frozen. So the sound of his voice is thunder, and the breath produces the ice. That's awesome to think about. I see where all these cartoons and different imageries get their ideas. He also loads the clouds with moisture, scattering his lightning with the clouds. It whirls about in circles at his direction to accomplish all that he commands. So God doesn't just aimlessly decide, oh, I'm going to throw in some thunder and lightning today. I'm going to, get some ice over there. But he does everything with purpose. Like that calls us to trust him. He does everything with purpose. And when he is the author of your life, you don't have to worry about the next chapter, right? You never have to worry about the next chapter when he is the author of your life. Okay, it whirls about 12. It whirls about in circles at his direction to accomplish all that he commands throughout the surface of the entire world, whether for discipline, again, correction, on his land, or to demonstrate his gracious love. He causes it to be realized. There's like some people pray the rain stops. God pours down in one area for the wind to not touch their place. I think about Jesus on the boat when he commanded the winds. And there's a lot to be said about how the weather plays a role in our lives to remind us of God and to show us like either God's wrath or God's love and mercy for us, or both. We can sit there and appreciate the weather in a way that is saying, okay, we are currently not in alignment with the Lord, and there's a lot of destructive weather happening. Or we can say, okay, Lord, thank you for the rain because our crops are flourishing, our water bills are low, all of these things. So we can thank God for encouraging friends like Elihu to Job. So Elihu challenges Job to pay attention. He says, pay attention to this, Job. Stand still and consider the wondrous attributes of God. Do you know how God ordains them and makes his lightning to flash through the clouds? Do you understand his wondrous work of balancing the clouds, the one whose knowledge is perfect? Are hot even though the land is cooled by a south wind? Can you spread out the skies like he does? His friend is like, trust God. Can you even do these things that God can do? Can you do what God can do? Can you cast them as one might a mirror? Tell us, what are we to say to him? Can we prepare our case to face him when our faces are in darkness? Has it been relayed to God that I want to talk? Can a person speak when he is confused? Verse 21. So then the sun is too bright to gaze at, is it not? Yeah, you look at the sun and you're like, get sunspots. The sky is swept clean by the winds that blow, is it not? It's like God's divine order for everything. From the north, he brings gold. Around God is awesome splendor. We cannot find the Almighty. He is majestic in power and, key word here, justice. Power and justice. And overflowing with righteousness. He never oppresses. Therefore, humanity fears him, which none of the wise can quite comprehend. And I don't want to go too long tonight. Just came on to talk about the weather, but let's be confident and not prideful. There's a difference between that, but confident and assured that God is in control of the weather. And so I don't know where you live, but whatever weather is coming your way, whatever weather in the future, I hope that you got something from this, that you listen to the thunder and you think that's God's voice. When you see snowfall, the breath of the Lord has touched us. Or maybe we have hurricanes. Maybe we have fire coming from the sky. Maybe we have tornadoes. Pray for those things not to touch you. Be found in righteousness. And if they do touch you, be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Said, if it's his will, know that everything is by him. And in the end, you know what happened to Job? Job got replenished. I think 110 times more, 110% more than what he had. Nothing replaces your kids. You're always going to have those memories, but you can honor those kids. And he blessed him with more kids, and blessed him with even more livestock, and blessed him to be redeemed and established because he was faithful to serve the Lord. So be faithful in your service to the Lord, and let's change the way we look at weather. I will I have put on my calendar to be back on tomorrow night, and we will be talking about Jonah tomorrow night. We will be looking at weather in the story of Jonah. So the Lord gave me Job, Jonah, and then Jesus. And if He gives me more, I will be asking. I hope you enjoyed this time. Thank you for watching, and be blessed, be blessed, be blessed. Shalom, shalom.